Hey guys, I'm Naya and welcome back to the channel. For today's video, I decided to do another tier list, but it's not one of the classical ones on the channel. I actually decided to rank the decks that are most likely to win the European Championship. So Power of the Elements is going to be legal, and I figured it would be interesting to rank decks that are coming out of that set as well. So before we get started, I also would like to know your predictions in the comment section down below. And of course, if you want to support me on Patreon, the link is always in the description. And shout out to my Patreons, Dudley Reiner, Project Mercury Crimson, and the new one, Damocus Whitewood. So I'm very glad that you're supporting me, and I'm very grateful as well. So let's go ahead and get through the tiers so we know sort of what's going on. We have the winner tier, the It's Possible tier, the underdog, and the probably not tier. And I decided to put, of course, it's not as many decks in my usual tier lists, the best decks one and so on, but I decided to put the decks that are most likely to actually do well as the ones that did well or got top 32, I should say. I mean that by saying they did well at the WCQ. So we're going to cover those as well since they did perform well, and it's only suitable to mention them here as well. So with all of that out of the way, we can go ahead and get started. The first one is ABC, simply because it got to top 32 at the WCQ. So ABC is like, I'm not sure, I think I will put it in the probably not category simply because the deck is not bad. Like, none of these decks on this tier list in particular aren't bad, they are tier 2 or like top of Rogue, but tier 2 and higher for the most part. I just don't think the decks that are a bit higher on the tier list, on like best deck scale right now, are going to be as great once Power of the Elements hits. So I think the decks out of that set are incredibly dominant and are going to be incredibly dominant. So I don't think those decks will be able to perform as well as maybe they did up until this point. But we still need to take into account that we have the Adventure Engine, we have Therian cards, and they are providing additional sort of boost of power to something like an ABC deck and some other ones as well. So I still don't think it's going to exactly be winning the WCQ. And then we have Adventure Dragon Link. So for this one, I think I'll put it in the It's Possible tier, simply because, like I said, with the overwhelmingly powerful decks coming out of Power of the Elements, and then pair that up with Dragon Link being a bit weird and bricky at times if you don't build it like to perfection. Like right now we're testing like a 50 or something card build, and it's working incredibly well, but still you need to be very, very, very prepared with dragons, and then you're gonna run into that weird hand every once in a while. So I don't know, it could go in the winners category, but top of It's Possible I think is suitable for Adventure Dragon Link. All right, then we have Adventure Synchro. So this sort of icon is representing the Adventure Synchro deck. And I'll put it in the It's Possible as well for the time being. I might switch things up a bit, maybe even higher than Dragon Link, because I think the deck is still incredibly powerful, and the ability to still run the Adventure Engine together in the format with Sprite and Tearlament, like that hasn't happened in the OCG to like the full power, because stuff got hit beforehand. So right now I think it's going to be a bit different, and I'm honestly wondering what we'll see happen. It's possible, or maybe even the top category, not sure yet. Then we have Tri Brigade. Let me think about that for a second. So Tri Brigade is, I don't know, I think it's going in the probably not tier, simply because of Power of the Elements also being legal. Like, if I did the tier list without Power of the Elements, it probably would go in the underdog slot. Tri Brigade, or like paired up with cat stuff or bird, like whatever version you're playing, I think it's cool and I think it's consistent, but I still don't think the end board is as strong as at times, and you're not always going to be like getting those perfect hands with which you have many extenders and you're able to play through a lot of things. And even if you do and you end up on something like an Appaloosa and a Revolt or something like that, in theory, like Adventure Engine breaks your board. Like, you know what I mean? Like, even if even if you set up whatever you may set up and you have like a hand trap or something, the adventure stuff is going to run through your board like it's nothing. So I don't know. I don't think it's that strong. But yeah, I still wanted to cover it since it did get a couple tops. And then we have Despia. So I don't know. Honestly, I think I'm moving it to It's Possible. Like, this version of Despia that I'm representing over here is not the one with Tier Limit. I get that Tier Limit also has a branded version, but we're gonna cover that when we get to the Tier Limit icon. So branded Despia, like just by itself, I think is kind of in a weird spot simply because it can't afford to play hand traps or like some other tech cards, and therefore sometimes you're not going to have the best hand to actually be able to break boards only with your engine. Because looking at the decks from Power of the Elements and the decks that are performing really well right now, something like Dragon Link, something like Sword Soul, like for the most part their engines are going to be a bit better, and since you're not playing hand traps, you will need to play through those boards. So if you don't open optimally, I don't think you're going to be doing that well. I still think like Despia very low key is almost an underdog deck. Like people are just not picking it up. But yeah, for the most part, like the ones that will play it, I think that actually go in the It's Possible slot. Okay, then we have Joy-Chan. Let me think about that. I honestly want to put Joy-Chan in the underdog slot. Like Joy-Chan is so nice. Like Joy-Chan has just always been able to do quite well, and with Ben 10 I think the boost was of course incredible, and like Joy-Chan is just, if you build it perfectly, I think you're going to be doing very well. Joy-Chan can also very comfortably run Mystic Mine, which is nice, of course. In a meta like this, you know, when Mystic Mine hard counters so many strategies, and also the new strategies coming from Power of the Elements, Mystic Mine is not bad against them, honestly. So I think Joy-Chan is going to be an underdog. Also has not that many flex spots, but the ones that you fill with tech cards are going to play a big role, because Joy-Chan, for the most part, like I've seen builds and my friends are like very, like they just love Joy-Chan, right? So the builds that they make, for the most part, they ran like Dark Ruler, Droplet main deck for the longest time now, or at least when the format was just perfect for it. So moving forward, I think Joy-Chan, I think Dark Ruler in the main deck is going to be very, very important, and a deck like Joy-Chan can afford that easily. So I think it should go in the underdog slot. And then Eldritch, I'm also putting in the underdog slot. Like Eldritch has been like historically proven in the OCG to be able to hang with the best decks from Power of the Elements. And right now, I also understand that we have all of the other decks still available, still at our disposal. But Eldritch, at least comparing it to Power of the Elements decks, I think is going to do well. And then we're not even, like, I haven't mentioned the floodgates yet. Like Eldritch is able to run pretty much every floodgate under the sun. Like they can do whatever they want with their flex spots, or basically their entire deck. Like they can just run any floodgate they want. They can run any trap card they want. So they can really like perfectly prepare for the event they're going to with the Eldritch deck. So yeah, I think Eldritch is the underdog for sure, just because it has so many spaces for cards that will actually hard counter many strategies. Then we have Exosister. Now I want to put this out there. I'm putting it in probably not, maybe above ABC, below Brigade. I don't think Exosister is going to be that great. I also don't think we're going to see this huge overwhelming representation of Sprite and Tier Element moving forward to the future format. We have adventure stuff, we have Dragon Link, we have Despia, we have all of the decks that we're mentioning today, and they're not hit, you know, they're not touched. Like it's not OCG where you have this one deck or two decks that just overpower everything else, and then a deck like Exosister comes that's able to just counter those decks, and then obviously it's doing really well. But over here the meta is that diverse to the point that I don't think Exosister will be able to hang simply because it's not that powerful. In the OCG, it just did well because it hard countered the best decks. But over here, we have so many of the best decks that I think, Exosister is just not that great, honestly. It might surprise me, but I still don't see it. Then we have Flunder. I'm putting it in the It's Possible, like above Despia. Like Flunder has just always been doing the exact same thing, and it's really strong. Like Flunder is one of those decks, when it gets going, it's very hard to stop. And pair that up with just D-Shifter, which is incredibly annoying, and it just hard counters the tier limit deck. You know, let's take that into account. Like if you have a way to counter the tier limit deck, I think you're very well off. And yeah, just Flunder overall, like it's nice. It has barrier statue. It has everything that I always mention when it comes to Flunder. Nothing has really changed much. So I also don't think it's going to like decline in power or popularity, especially going into an event like this where you have a set legal for only a couple of days. Like, yeah, I get that people are testing it beforehand. If you're going to the European Championship, I'm pretty sure you need to be prepared. But even if you're not that certain what you want to play, how you're going to do, if you take something like Flunder, which is quite easy to pilot, and then you actually like build it, you get it ready for that particular format, I think you're going to be doing well, simply because it's not that incredibly hard. So you can actually focus on preparing against the other decks. You can learn Sprite, you can learn Tier Element, and you can learn all of these matchups and still do well and not really sweat when you're playing your Flunder stuff, especially for that many rounds. So yeah, I think Flunder is like one of the top contenders for sure. And then we have Marincess. Now, let me think about that for a second. So I think I'm going to be putting Marincess in the underdog slot, simply because it's really taking us by surprise, but I don't think it's that great. Like, I get that Marincess has been doing quite well, but I just don't really see the power. Like, maybe I just ran into a couple players that weren't that great with the deck, but I don't know. I guess I just don't deem Marincess that dangerous right now. And let's take into account as well that they're playing Floodgates. Like Go's Match is nice. Go's Match is really strong. So if they open Go's Match, then, you know, that's just it. But it's similar to other decks as well. And then you have other decks that are able to run Floodgates, and on top of that, just be very, very strong. So I think it's, yeah, I just think those decks are a bit better than Marincess. Might be an underdog though. We'll just see. Now, Mathmech. I'm putting this at the top of the underdog slot. I think Mathmech is so strong. I think it's so good if the player actually pilots it to perfection. Now, if you're really thinking ahead, if you're learning Mathmech to be able to counter it because Circular is such an important addition, then more power to you. It's all good. Like, you're going to be able to counter Mathmech. But for the most part, people are not going to be prepared for it. And like I said, Circular is... I have no words to describe how good of an addition Circular is to the deck. And yeah, I'm most certain we're gonna see Mathmech decks in Top Cut, and it just might cheese out that win. So yeah, I'm a big Mathmech fan. To be honest, I would love to see it do well. Then we're just gonna mention Plunder and also Phantom Knights I have down here, simply because they did well at the WCQ, at the NAWCQ, but I just don't see it performing well. I don't think they had a high representation. Was it like 1 or 2 players? I'm not sure in top 32. So yeah, maybe someone is very strong with the deck. Like, they're able to play it to perfection. The adventure stuff grants a lot of advantage, but I don't think it's that great. It might take me by surprise, but I just don't really see it. And then Phantom Knight as well. Like, yeah, like a couple people or one person were able to do well. But Phantom Knight is one of those decks that feels way too breaky to me and way too hard, especially to take it into such an unexplored format. Now, if you're really comfortable with the deck, it might make sense. So, you know, you might do well, and I might be completely wrong, but I just don't really see it happening. If you're picking up a combo deck at that point, I would probably pick up Dragon Link, since you already have the adventure stuff if you're planning to pair it up with Phantom Knight. And yeah, I think you would be better off to play something like that. So I just don't really see the power. Then we have Punk. Now, the Foxy Tuner is representing pure Punk, and I'll put it in the underdog slot. we have many underdog decks. So Pure Punk, the advantage that it has is the fact that it's such an unexplored deck by other players. Like if you're not used to it, if you've never really played against it, you're just not gonna know what hits you. Like you're going to be so confused because you might even expect other engines, and then when they just never get there and you're just facing the same punk stuff, the same punk plays over and over again, you just might get confused, make a mistake, and they're able to win. So I think it's an underdog deck if people will not be prepared for it. And I think overall the Pure Punk stuff is very, very interesting. Then we have Salamangreat. Let's put it in probably not. Like, Salamangreat is not bad at all, looking at it by itself. But then you put it, like, next to a couple of the decks here on this list, and I just don't think it's able to do that well. Salamangreat to me feels like it just doesn't have that many plays. Like, you do your basic stuff and you're trying to push for an OTK. Now, the only thing I would like to point out is the fact that if people don't play Nibiru, which I'm sort of, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I see people I see people doing that all the time. Like, they see this one meta that's going to be evolving, like the Power of the Elements format. And then they're like, okay, we're not going to play Nibiru because of Gigantic Sprite. But then they don't take into account that there are so many different decks able to do well simply because you're not going to be playing Nibiru. Something like Salamangreat, just decks that will thrive off of you not maining that Nibiru. And even though Nibiru might be dead in like one game, you can still side it out and you don't have to deal with it. So I think it's not going to be that great, like, for people to just drop a hand trap altogether because they're expecting some other decks. And I haven't even mentioned the fact that, like, we're not gonna have only Sprite and Tearlament. Like, yeah, people are going to be playing it and it's going to be highly represented, but you still need to think of all of the other decks that people might be picking up for different reasons. Maybe they're not going to be investing into Sprite and Tearlament, even though they seemed quite affordable. Now with pre-sale prices, like, there have been a couple heated discussions about that, which I won't get into, but like, if people don't invest into those decks, you will be facing some other strategies, whether it be Rogue, whether it be something like, I don't know, like Salamangreat or Marincess or Drytron. And those decks like Nibiru is going to help you to some extent. So yeah, I still don't think Salamangreat is going to be that great simply because it's not that strong. But if you're taking into account that people will not be playing Nibiru, maybe we should just be moving it to the underdog slot. And then we have Sky Striker. Now, Sky Striker, I'm not sure. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not sure when it comes to Sky Striker. Let me think about that for a second. So I think I'll put it in... No, I'm not sure. Oh my god. I'll put it at the bottom of its possible. But it does struggle with consistency so much. But then again, it does play Mystic Mine, so that's nice. And if you're playing like hard-going second builds, and you're maining maybe like Droplets or Ruler, or things like that, then you will be able to run over decks. Yeah, I think I'll put it at the bottom of it's possible. I always think it's possible with Sky Striker. There really doesn't need to be, like, not much needs to be said about that. I think it's possible. And then for the winners, because we only have 3 decks left, I will put all of those 3 in. I think it's kind of obvious at this point. Let me just decide how I want to arrange things. So I think I'll do it like this, because I do think, so going over the actual slot, the winner slot. Sword Soul, I think, is going to be very strong moving forward still. Like, you are just able to go second quite easily because Tenyis are that strong, that powerful. You're able to run Floodgate to counter different decks. You're even able to run Mystic Mine. So the fact that you're able to sort of tailor your main deck accordingly to whatever meta you're going into, pair that up with the fact that the deck is highly consistent and also has a good Splice matchup, I think all of that just speaks for Sword Soul doing well. And then if we actually touch upon Tearlament and Sprite. I think Tearlament is going to be a bit better moving forward, simply because compared to the OCG, over here we have many different engines that can be paired up with this deck and actually not be scared of Max C, and then take into account as well that Sprite is not exactly searching Max C. So if you look at all of that, I think Tearlament is going to be a bit better, but then there's a lot of RNG in that deck, and also you need to build it to perfection. And like when I see when I'm building the deck, or like I see my friends testing, like there's a lot of confusion when it comes to ratios, when it comes to engines, when it comes to, you know, tech cards. And hopefully there's still enough time for people to prepare, which I think it is. To be honest, I think it's plenty of time. But you know, again, we'll see what happens. Like I said, you know, you need to build those two decks to perfection, and some people might not be ready for them. That's something to think about as well. But I still do think, yeah, like I said, Tearlament is going to be a bit better because there's so many different versions that you can play. Branded, Punk, it's pure as well. So yeah, that's the tier list. I'm pretty sure the decks are going to be very dominant when it comes to representation. So even looking at that, you know, you might see a big conversion rate because of it, or you might see a very small conversion rate because people won't be that great actually piloting those decks. So there's a lot to take into account. I think the tier list is fine. I think I'm satisfied with it, but please let me know what you think. Let me know if there's anything I have missed, if there's any other deck you would like to put on this list. Like, there are a couple that I just didn't feel like mentioning because they are a bit more rogue, and I think they're going to be even more rogue with the two new most dominant decks slowly drifting into the meta. So yeah, that's it. Let me know if you liked the video. I had a lot of fun doing this. I want to do more tier lists because I just enjoy them a lot, and I love the conversation we always have, you know, in the comments. Please let me know what you think is going to be the winner of the European Championship. If you liked the video, of course, like it, sub to the channel, check out all of the social media, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!